The hospital room carried the harsh smell of antiseptic, a scent that hinted at endings. Sarah, a frail African-American woman, lay in bed, her eyes fixed on the cracked ceiling. The constant hum of the fluorescent lights was a dull thrum. Her world had shrunk to these four walls. 21 years felt like an unlived blink. A faded teddy bear lay beside her, a silent reminder of a childhood far away. Today was February 13th, a fact she knew only because an orderly had mentioned tomorrow's holiday, a cruel irony for someone so utterly alone. A tear rolled down her temple. The door scraped open, startling Sarah. A tall, impeccably dressed man filled the doorway. He wasn't a doctor or a nurse. This man radiated dangerous efficiency. His dark Mafia suit, worn over a crisp white-collared shirt, was tailored with a precision that spoke of immense power. His dark, sharp eyes scanned the room, making Sarah's breath catch. He looked out of place, like a wolf in a lamb's enclosure. Jean, a formidable Korean Mafia boss, was looking for room 307. A wrong turn had led him here, to a room steeped in visible sorrow. His gaze, usually cold, softened imperceptibly as it landed on Sarah, her small frame almost swallowed by the bed. He stood for a moment, an unfamiliar knot tightening in his chest. The silence stretched, broken only by the rhythmic beep of a machine beside her bed. He had come prepared for stern warnings, not for this heartbreaking scene. The scent of disinfectant mingled with a ghost of faded rose petals, though there were no flowers. He felt an unusual sense of intrusion, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. The brutal world of his making as a Mafia boss seemed to recede, leaving only this quiet space, this dying girl, and his own unexpected unease. He registered the Ford drip, the monitor, the stark reality of her situation. Sarah, her voice a reedy whisper barely audible, finally broke the spell. You must have the wrong room. Her throat felt like sandpaper. He was a predator, terrifying, and she was prey, too weary to even tremble. Jean, caught off guard, stiffened. He cleared his throat. My apologies, he rumbled, his voice surprisingly deep. I was looking for room 307. This appears to be 309-inch he made to turn, his dark Mafia suit rippling. But something held him, a flicker of something he couldn't name in Sarah's large, luminous eyes. They held profound sadness, but also a startling courage. He paused, his gaze lingering on the worn teddy bear, then back to her face, recognizing a vulnerability he rarely encountered. He stood, frozen in the doorway. The urge to return to his world of controlled chaos was powerful. Yet, Sarah's voice, fragile as spun glass, had snagged him. Wait, she rasped, a desperate plea cutting through his composure. Please, Jean turned back fully, his dark eyes narrowing slightly. He, a Korean Mafia boss, was not accustomed to being detained by someone so powerless. Sarah knew this was a chance, however slim, for a final human interaction before silence. She had no family, no friends left. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow, she whispered, the words bittersweet. Anne. I don't have anyone. Her gaze, direct and unwavering, met his. There was no pity in her eyes, only a raw plea for human warmth. Could you, just for an hour, be my Valentine? The audacity of the request hung in the air. It was utterly alien to Jin's experience as a Mafia boss. His reputation preceded him like a shadow, a whisper of fear. He was a man of steel. And this fragile, dying girl was asking him to play a part in a tender holiday he disdained. His initial reaction was incredulity, then annoyance. He had no time for such sentimentality. But as he truly looked at her, he saw profound loneliness, a desolate expanse mirrored in the quiet despair of her eyes. It resonated, faintly, with a long-buried ache within himself. The fluorescent light hummed louder. He considered a dismissive exit. But her unwavering gaze, a quiet dignity amidst vulnerability, held him captive. He imagined the headlines, the fearsome Korean Mafia boss propositioned by a dying girl. The absurdity almost made him smile. You don't know who I am, he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, a warning. He expected her to recoil. But Sarah shook her head. It doesn't matter, she whispered, her voice infused with surprising strength. In here, none of that matters. We're all just people. The profound simplicity of her statement struck him. He was used to titles, to respect born of fear. Here, she had stripped him of all that. It was unsettling, yet liberating. He felt a faint tremor, an echo of a long-forgotten kindness he had once witnessed. He saw her desperation, but also a quiet resolve to claim this one small moment of warmth. His hand, resting on the doorframe, tightened, a silent manifestation of his internal struggle. Jean stood in the suffocating silence. Her words, "In here, none of that matters. We're all just people," echoed in his mind. It was a concept so foreign to his existence as a powerful mafia boss that it momentarily disarmed him. He was a force to be reckoned with. Yet here, under the gaze of a dying girl, he felt stripped of his armor. He remembered a cold, rain-slicked alleyway from his youth. He had been a boy then, hungry and alone. An old woman had offered him a steamed bun, a simple act of human kindness. He had buried that moment, replaced by the hardened mafia boss he had become. Sarah watched him, a fragile hope flickering. "I know it's a strange request," she said, softer now. "But I just don't want to be completely alone tomorrow." Not on Valentine's Day, a tear escaped. "I used to love Valentine's Day," she murmured, a faint smile touching her lips. "My mother, Clara, she used to give me a single red rose every year. Even when we had nothing else, she always found a way," her voice caught. Her mother, gone too soon, had been her world. After her, the world had become colder. She was truly, utterly alone. Jean felt an unfamiliar twist in his gut. The memory of the old woman resurfaced. He had taken the bun, not just out of hunger, but a desperate need for human acknowledgement. This was a direct appeal to his humanity, something he believed he had eradicated. He looked at Sarah, at the hope in her eyes, the tear clinging to her lash. He saw profound courage. Her mother giving her a rose, a symbol of hope amidst scarcity, resonated with a primal part of him he rarely allowed to surface. He could simply walk away. He had a crucial meeting tonight. But her image, so fragile yet resolute, haunted him, demanding a response beyond logic. The rhythmic beeping of the machine seemed to accelerate, mirroring his internal debate. A profound stillness settled. Sarah held her breath, searching his face. She braced for rejection. He was a mafia boss. Her plea had no place in his world. Yet, a stubborn ember of hope refused to be extinguished. Jean finally moved, a slow, deliberate shifting. He reached into the inner pocket of his dark mafia suit jacket over his white-collared shirt. Sarah's eyes widened, a flicker of fear. Was he reaching for a weapon? He withdrew not a weapon, but a small, intricately folded silk handkerchief, pristine white. He unfolded it, revealing a single, perfectly formed, deep red rosebud, its petals still tight. The contrast was breathtaking, an unexpected splash of vibrant color. Sarah gasped. "It is not Valentine's Day yet," Jean stated, his voice low, but now with quiet sincerity. But he continued, his dark eyes meeting hers, a surprising warmth shimmering within them. "Tomorrow, it will be." He extended the rose towards her, his large, calloused hand holding the delicate bloom with a gentle reverence utterly at odds with his formidable presence as a Korean mafia boss. "Consider this, a down payment." His lips, usually grim, softened almost imperceptibly, a hint of a smile far deeper than amusement. "And yes, Sarah, I will be your Valentine." The words hung in the air, a shocking, improbable declaration. Sarah stared at the rose, then at his face, her mind struggling. A wave of emotion, so potent it threatened to overwhelm her, washed over her. It was the joy of not being alone, the breathtaking surprise of unexpected kindness. Tears, hot and abundant, streamed down her face, tears of gratitude, of being seen, truly seen. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers brushing the soft petals. It felt real, a tangible piece of beauty and hope. "Thank you," she whispered, choked with emotion. "Thank you, Jean." The mention of his name, spoken with tender vulnerability, settled something within him, a subtle shift in the walls around his heart. He watched her, a strange, unfamiliar peace blossoming in his chest. The weight of his world seemed to recede. The rose, a vibrant splash of defiance, glowed with a quiet promise, a symbol of hope planted in the most unlikely of places. The air, once heavy with sorrow, now seemed lighter. The relentless beeping of the monitor now pulsed with a new, gentler rhythm. He was a mafia boss who commanded fear, but in this moment, he had given something far more valuable: hope. Jean remained by her bedside. Sarah, cradling the rosebud, felt a fragile warmth. A Korean mafia boss, a man of such formidable reputation, was going to be her Valentine. It felt like an impossible dream. She looked at the rose, its crimson petals promising life, a stark contrast to her imminent end. It was a small thing, yet it held immense meaning, a symbol of being remembered. How did you have a rose?" she finally asked, her voice weak but curious. A faint wry twist touched Jin's lips. "A detail from a negotiation," he replied. "A peace offering of sorts from a misguided rival. I found it unnecessary for my purposes," he didn't elaborate. She understood. Intuitively, his world was complex. He glanced at his heavy, expensive watch. "I have other engagements," he stated, his voice returning to its measured tone, though a softness lingered. "But I will return tomorrow." With another rose, the promise, simple and direct, solidified their connection. It was a commitment. Sarah felt a surge of emotion. "You don't have to," she whispered. "I know," his gaze met hers, a silent assurance. "But I will." There was quiet determination. He was a man of his word, a mafia boss, and a promise was sacred. As he turned to leave, his dark mafia suit disappearing, the room seemed to regain its emptiness, yet it was an emptiness now filled with the fragrant ghost of a rose and the warmth of an impossible promise. Sarah held the rosebud to her cheek. She closed her eyes, a faint smile playing on her lips. For the first time in a long time, she felt a flicker of hope, a fragile anticipation for tomorrow. The image of his stern face, softened by the unexpected gesture, imprinted itself on her mind. His world, woven with dark threads of power and danger, had briefly intersected with hers, creating a profound beauty. She wondered what kind of burdens he carried as a mafia boss. His eyes, though hardened, held a flicker she recognized: loneliness, unspoken sorrow. The beeping of the monitor now felt like a steady, comforting rhythm. In this small, sterile room, a fragile new beginning had unfurled, unexpected and profoundly moving. Jean stepped out into the hospital corridor, the fluorescent lights harsh after the subdued intimacy. The air felt colder, sharper. His mind, usually a fortress of strategic calculations, felt disoriented. His phone flashed with urgent messages from lieutenants. He had a meeting with a rival crime family leader in 2 hours. Yet, the image of Sarah's fragile hand clutching the rosebud eclipsed the looming threat. It was a sensation he hadn't accounted for as a mafia boss. He walked past nurses and doctors. For Jean, the world seemed to have tilted. He was a mafia boss who understood power. Tenderness, vulnerability, innocent requests, these were not currencies in his empire. And yet, he had promised. The absurdity gnawed at him. A memory flickered, his younger brother, Minjun, in a hospital bed, ravaged by fever. Jean, barely a teenager, had sat vigil. Minjun had loved roses. Jean had promised him a garden full of roses. But the promise remained unfulfilled, buried with Minjun. The guilt had driven him, fueled his ambition, hardened him into the powerful Korean mafia boss he was. He had forgotten the simple beauty of a rose. Now he understood. The old woman in the alley, the steamed bun, a seed planted. And Sarah, with her impossible request, had watered it, causing a long dormant sprout to push through the hardened earth of his heart. He felt profound disquiet. His carefully constructed world, built on control, was incomplete. He reached his sleek black car. "To the office," he commanded, his voice authoritative. And then, "I need flowers. Red roses. The freshest you can find." His driver, Jae-woo, merely nodded. The city lights twinkled as dusk settled. Jean stared out the window, his reflection superimposed against the cityscape, the brutal reality of his making as a mafia boss and the fragile, unexpected humanity he had rediscovered. The weight of his brother's memory, long suppressed, felt tangible. The rose had become a bridge, forcing him to confront the empty spaces within himself. The following morning dawned gray and drizzly. But within Sarah's room, anticipation had taken root. She awoke to her phone displaying February 14th, Valentine's Day. She looked at the rosebud Jean had left, its petals unfurling. A faint smile, one she hadn't felt in months, touched her lips. She was weak, but today there was a lightness in her spirit. She recalled memories of her mother, Clara, and the single red rose. Even the smallest kindness can grow into something beautiful, my butterfly, Clara used to say. Sarah often felt like a withered butterfly now. But today, a tiny flutter of life stirred. The familiar scrape of the door opening made her heart leap. Jean stood there, a stark, powerful figure. Today, he carried a large, exquisite bouquet of deep red roses. Their rich, sweet scent instantly filled the sterile room, chasing away the antiseptic tang. He wore his dark Mafia suit and crisp white-collared shirt. He looked different, less like the imposing Mafia boss, more like a man holding flowers. It was so improbable that Sarah felt fresh tears well up. He had kept his promise. He walked further in, his gaze softening as he saw her clutching the rosebud. He placed the large bouquet on her bedside table, the vibrant crimson a stunning splash against the white linen. "Happy Valentine's Day, Sarah," he said, his voice a low, steady rumble, infused with warmth. He pulled a scuffed plastic chair closer and sat down. It was a simple gesture, yet it carried immense weight. He wasn't just dropping off flowers. He was here to stay. Sarah, overwhelmed, could only whisper, "Jean, they're beautiful." The abundance of roses, a lush symphony of crimson, was a stark contrast to her mother's single bloom. It spoke not just of wealth, but a profound desire to fulfill a promise. She remembered her mother's stories of love. This was one of them, amplified by the unexpected giver. She felt overwhelming gratitude. In her darkest hours, she had wished for just one person to remember her. And now, this formidable Mafia boss had done just that and more. He sat there, a silent sentinel, allowing the quiet presence of the roses and his unexpected company to fill the empty spaces that had haunted her. The hum of the medical equipment seemed to fade, replaced by the gentle rustle of petals and the profound, unspoken language of human connection. Jean watched her unfamiliar emotions tightening his chest. Sitting here, observing a dying woman find solace in roses, felt profoundly alien, yet compelling. "My mother loved roses," Sarah said softly, her voice a fragile whisper, lost in a tender memory. She used to say they were proof that even after the longest winter, beauty always returns. That hope always finds a way to bloom. She looked at him, her eyes holding a depth of wisdom. "She taught me to always look for the beauty, even when things were dark. To find the light in the shadows." Jean felt a jolt, an echo in his own heart. His mother had spoken of similar things, which he had dismissed as sentimentalities. But now, through Sarah's words, he saw their profound truth, a truth he had buried beneath ambition as a Mafia boss. He remembered his mother, tending her small vegetable patch. He had always wanted to be strong enough to protect her, but in pursuing strength, he had lost touch with her beliefs. "My mother, she would have liked you," he found himself saying, the words surprising even himself, a rare glimpse into a guarded past. It was a confession, a bridge between his two worlds. Sarah's smile widened, a radiant glow on her pale face. "And I think I would have liked her too," she replied. The shared connection felt profoundly significant. He felt a softening within him. The weight of his responsibilities as a Mafia boss seemed to recede, replaced by a quiet peace. He found himself telling her about his brother, Minjun, a hesitant confession of grief he had carried for decades. He spoke of Minjun's love for roses, the garden he had promised, a promise tragically unfulfilled. The words, once locked away, flowed with unexpected ease, a cathartic release. Sarah listened intently, her eyes filled with empathy. She understood loss, unfulfilled promises. He would have loved these, Sarah whispered, gazing at the roses. He would have seen the hope in them. Her simple words resonated with Jean, a healing balm. The sterile room, once a symbol of endings, now felt transformed, a sanctuary of shared stories, bathed in the soft glow of crimson petals. The connection deepened, a powerful bond forged in shared humanity. As the afternoon light waned, a comfortable silence settled. Sarah, her strength ebbing, felt a profound peace. She looked at Jean. "You know," she began, her voice barely a whisper, "there was a boy, when I was very little. My mother and I were so poor, living above a bakery. A fierce storm hit, and rain poured through our leaky roof. I was crying, so scared. And then, a boy a little older appeared at our door. He had a small, tattered umbrella, and he offered it to my mother. He said, 'It's not much, but it might help keep the rain off your head.'" Jean listened intently, a strange sense of familiarity prickling his memory. Sarah continued, her voice gaining fragile strength. "My mother refused, too proud. But the boy insisted. He left the umbrella by our door, and then he disappeared back into the rain. We never saw him again. But that umbrella, it wasn't much, but it was a symbol. A symbol of unexpected kindness, of a small light in a dark time." She looked at Jean, her gaze piercing. "His eyes, they were dark like yours. And he carried himself with a quiet seriousness, even then." A cold wave washed over Jean, followed by a rush of heat. The memory, long buried, exploded into vivid clarity. The driving rain, the leaky roof, the small, frightened girl, and her dignified mother. The umbrella, a cheap thing he had found, an act of impulsive kindness from a boy who knew little kindness himself. He remembered the helplessness, the desperate urge to do something for that vulnerable family. He had been so young, so powerless, yet in that moment, he had felt purpose. The image of the woman's proud refusal, the girl's tear-streaked face, it had stayed with him. He had fled soon after, embarking on the path that led him to become the formidable Korean Mafia boss, pushing that memory deep into his mind. Now, decades later, the pieces clicked. He was that boy. Sarah was that child. The wealthy, powerful Korean Mafia boss was inextricably linked to the vulnerable child through a simple, forgotten act of compassion. The irony was devastatingly poignant. He, the fearsome Mafia boss, had built an empire on strength, only to be reminded of his earliest act of pure, selfless compassion by the very recipient of that act, now a dying woman. The roses, symbol of hope, held a deeper meaning, blooming not just for Sarah, but for the long-dormant humanity within himself, guided back to the light by the fragile thread of a forgotten kindness. The room now felt like a sacred chamber, holding the echoes of a shared past. The truth settled over Jean like a shroud. He, the architect of a ruthless empire, was merely a boy again, offering a flimsy umbrella. Sarah, his Valentine, was the small girl whose tears he had unknowingly tried to dry. The revelation left him speechless, stripping away his defenses, exposing the raw, vulnerable core he had hidden for decades. The world outside faded. All that remained was this sterile room, the scent of roses, and the profound weight of their shared history. He reached for her hand, his large, powerful fingers gently enclosing her frail ones. His touch was surprisingly tender. "Sarah," he said, his voice husky with emotion, a rare tremor. "It was me. I was that boy, the confession, long overdue, felt like a dam breaking." Sarah's eyes widened, fresh tears gathering, tears of wonder, recognition. "I knew," she whispered, filled with unwavering certainty. "I always remembered those dark, serious eyes. And the kindness." A single tear traced a path down Jin's rugged cheek, a tear for the lost boy, for his brother Minjun, for the years spent building walls, and for the profound, bittersweet beauty of this moment. The redemption arc for the ruthless Korean Mafia boss was unfurling. He saw not just a dying woman, but a beacon of enduring hope, a living testament to a single act of kindness that had found its way back to him. He realized all his power, all his wealth, could not buy a moment as meaningful as this. It was an earned happiness, not through conquest, but through courage. The following days were a blur of quiet conversations, of shared silences. Jean visited daily, bringing fresh roses, listening to Sarah's stories, sharing fragments of his own. He spoke of Minjun, of his mother, of the burden of leadership as a mafia boss, his voice losing its hardened edge. Sarah, in turn, found a strength she hadn't known she possessed, her spirit buoyed by his presence, by the unexpected love that had blossomed. She taught him the simple beauty of presence, the profound importance of genuine connection. One quiet afternoon, as the last rays of sunlight streamed through the window, Sarah's breath grew shallow. She held one of the red roses, its petals fully open. Her eyes, filled with serene acceptance, met Jin's. "Thank you, Jean," she whispered, her voice fading. "For being my Valentine. For bringing the roses. For reminding me of the light." Her gaze flickered to the teddy bear, then back to him, a faint smile. And for the umbrella, her eyes closed, her grip on the rose loosened, and the gentle beeping of the monitor stretched into a long, continuous tone, a final lament. Jean sat there for a long time, holding her hand, feeling the warmth leave her fingers. The room was silent. He had lost her, yet he had also found something invaluable. The roses glowed with ethereal light, a testament to her enduring spirit, the hope she had ignited. He left the hospital that evening a changed man. The ruthless Korean Mafia boss was still there, but beneath the hardened exterior, a profound shift had occurred. The empty spaces now held the echoes of Sarah's laughter, her wisdom, and the fragrant ghost of 1,000 red roses. He carried her memory, and the small, tattered teddy bear she had left behind. He would build that rose garden for Minjun, a garden filled with the deepest crimson, a place where the kindness he had once shown and the love he had unexpectedly found would forever bloom, a poignant, everlasting tribute to two souls who, through the unlikely magic of a forgotten umbrella and a dying wish, had taught him what it truly meant to live and to love. The city whispered Sarah's name, a reminder that, even in the darkest corners, hope, like a single red rose, could always find a way to bloom.